with players' surnames B and C, there's no one after K in the alphabet. Is there some reason with names that make them better at wheelchair rugby league? I don't know.
Well, there's a growing player pool, a smaller player pool than some other sports, so maybe it's a coincidence, but yeah, short range in the alphabet for this squad.
France on Sunday, obviously we look back a year. What's your year been like since winning the World Cup?
It's been a lot of things that I've never experienced before, so lots of growth, lots of challenges, lots of juggling work life and coach life and family life, but I think that's a good sign that life's going well. Winning
a World Cup, it opens doors in terms of, you mentioned the press conference, players going to Wimbledon, you get awards from royalty come to meet you. What's been the big change in terms of how you're seen by the outside world?
Obviously interest and visibility is great, but I think it's respect for the sport and the athletes. When you're not a professional athlete, I think people assume that you don't put enough effort or as much effort into training and preparation. But the way that the players play on the field and how organised and professional we are, I think it takes people by surprise. And then opinion quickly changes and you get treated just like any other professional sport, which is really nice.
Have you had any conversations with other sports? Do they come to you and say, well, you've won a World Cup, how did you do that? Is that kind of something that happens now? I guess motivational speaking in a sense.
Yeah, not motivational speaking per se, but comparing notes, especially with other sports who are in a similar position to us. I take inspiration from our leading sports teams like the England football team, Sean Wayne and his England men. But those more kind of like pioneering and real in like a real growth stage sports, like our Lionesses, England netball, even wheelchair rugby and wheelchair basketball, who obviously have a lot of synergy. So there's a lot of networking and kind of looking over each other's shoulders to see where we can steal ideas, really.
Make sure Sean Wayne should be coming to you. You've won a World Cup. He hasn't yet with England.
Well, totally different landscape, so I wouldn't compare achievements, and I think Sean's done an amazing job with the challenges that have come his way, not least the postponed World Cup and all the things that happen around that. So I'm really proud of the work that he's done with that team.
It's a big weekend. Obviously yourself, the men and the women all play. How important is it that England are seen as this one unit, not just three separate teams?
Well, it's something we should celebrate, definitely. To have three separate sporting teams under the same umbrella that are all very, very successful in each of their own environments, I think it's really unique. And like I said in the press conference, I'm really proud of England in terms of like the period of success that they're having with their national sports. I think we're doing great at the minute, and it's amazing to be part of that movement. So England Rugby League are in an amazing place. My lifetime's not as long as some other coaches, but I feel like it's as good as it's ever been for England.
Being around the England camp at the weekend, the football camp at St George's, what was that like as an experience, being around everything around there, especially with the Lionesses being there at the same time?
Yeah, I mean that was serendipitous really, because we absolutely loved watching what they did in the Euros, because that was right when we were in the thick of our preparation for the World Cup last year. So rubbing shoulders with them was a nice like full circle, and also just like being in that bubble of like the cutting edge of sports preparation was eye-opening, inspiring. It 100% lifted the intensity at training. It was as good as a session over a 2-year camp that we've ever had. So worth it, definitely.
You mentioned Gareth Southgate in the press conference. Do you understand the stick he gets? I mean, he's the highest profile coach you could probably get in this country, in the world, perhaps,
in the world,
football team.
Yeah.
Do you understand that criticism he gets for a team which has performed much better than some of his predecessors have done?
Yeah, like I said, I'm just so impressed with how he handles it all. And the higher profile you get, the more likely you are to see the best and the worst of fandom. And from what I understand as an outsider looking in, is he's done an amazing job with that team to quiet down the noise and get them to just enjoy themselves and go back to why they started playing sport in the first place. So if I could take anything out of the lessons that he's kind of put out into the world, I'd be a great coach.
We're talking about England-France at the weekend. How hard was it to pick a squad, especially with no Wigan players and who won the grand final?
It was so tough to pick a squad, and we had Wigan players in the train-on squad right up until to this final selection point, and that was testament to the playoff run that Wigan made. You know, they came from third and being very much like not in the reckoning really to make the grand final, to going on and beating the most successful wheelchair rugby league team in the country for the last probably 5 years in Leeds. So yeah, it was a really tough selection to come all the way down from 16, where we were about 6 weeks ago, right down to 8, which is a kind of new challenge for me as a coach, where the available kind of maximums come down from 10 to 8. There's 2 players less that you've got to choose from tactically, and obviously the player pool's got deeper in terms of how many players are of England's standard this year. So good headache, no doubt.
Where does the sport go from here? Obviously, as you mentioned, participation numbers up. We only have to see the amount of clubs that are springing up, and not just clubs, but development squads within clubs. It must be great to see from last year how that has grown exponentially.
Yeah, couldn't have scripted it, and I'm so grateful for the amount of people that stick in their oar in. You know, we've been working so hard in the shadows really to try and show people how good of a sport wheelchair rugby league is. So I think where's next, we could pick a number of directions, and the management team that kind of sculpts the sport are working incredibly hard to make sure that we pick the right one, because we're kind of at a watershed moment really.
Yeah, the domestic game's almost, because it's developing as we speak, you can try different things at that level.
Yeah.
How do we get more intensity? How do we get better opponents for England? It's the wrong phrase I'm using, but how do we increase the player pool, not just for England but across the world, so that it's not just England and France who are competing in the big games? Yeah,
I don't want to sound like a broken record in terms of what rugby league people have been saying for years, but the international game's crucial. I'd say that as the England coach, so obviously that's my opinion, but we want to have challenges from as many countries as possible, not only because it makes us as a team better, but it grows the sport globally, and we want everyone to hear about this great story that's wheelchair rugby league. The player pool for the home nations is growing every week. There's a new player signing up for several clubs up and down the country, and I know Dundee Dragons won an award last night at the Variety Disability Awards here in Leeds. So I've got great hope for the countries that are close to us, and who knows, there might be another surprise nation that joins in the next World Cup like America did last year.
You know, that Jack Brown's going to make the Australians really great, and then we've got that but it's another natural rivalry, is England-Australia. We saw at the World Cup how much interest was in that game before, and I guess that's the next frontier for wheelchair rugby league is down in Australia. Yeah,
we've got to be careful what we wish for there, because obviously the Kangaroos are an amazing opponent for England and Great Britain since time began in the sport. Jack Brown's an England player through and through, so I've no worries there, but he's doing a great job in helping develop their players up in North Queensland, and where he lives in Townsville. He's got 4 of the starting Queensland players that he actually coaches, so I think if they do things the right way, and we want them to, then they'll be a force to reckon with come 2026.
Sunday. The great thing that everyone's noticed from the documentary and during the World Cup, it's not as if it was a secret that the French have their philosophy, England has theirs. Can it meet in the middle, or will that always be the case that England play a certain way, France want to play a certain way?
I think on the pitch it's great if it doesn't meet in the middle, because that stark contrast is what makes great TV and great entertainment, which at the end of the day that's exactly what sport is. So I'm quite happy that we're pulling in opposite directions on the field, but off the field, if you boil it right down, it's we both want what we think's best for the sport. So I think that we're heading in the right direction. The more good, smart thinkers that we get in the room, the better the sport's going to become. And over the next few years, we will land on the right definition.
You can't obviously look ahead to the second game without going through the first. How ready are you in terms of, in your head, for the team on Sunday to perform at their best against, but obviously you're going to be a team who are desperate to put the record straight after last year?
Yeah, if the France World Cup team last year were hungry, I think that this France team are going to be starving, because they've lost that world champion title, and there's been a little bit of squad rotation. That means there's players in that French team who will be looking to stake their claim and show their coaches that they're the new players that can take that France team forward. So I think it'll be equally as hard, if not harder, than last year.
From car parks to arenas then, big crowd expected on Sunday, and I guess, well, I spoke to someone you know well, Mr. Martin Coyd, last year ahead of the Lionesses final. It was the day of the final, it was here at the summer back, and he said, dream, we're here to dream. Could you have ever thought anything like this would have been possible within that 12-18 months that you go from going into a World Cup to playing an international test match in a big arena in a major city?
Well, yeah, I could have, because like you say, we've been dreaming all along, and if you don't have those dreams, then you basically just take whatever comes to you, and that's not always the right way to do things. We've always wanted to play on the biggest stage, and at the Wheelchair Rugby League Awards last February, I said from the car park to the copper box, and now we're at the first direct arena, so there's a bit of a theme developing. I hope that we can put on a great event, and we'll join the ranks of some of the most incredible performers that have ever walked the planet when we take the stage at the first direct arena on Sunday. So what a place for us to join.